This video is dedicated to users and groups on the administrative widget. It's really pertinent effectively to roles and how to use them. We're again using the Quincy version of Lab, but this will be in all versions. The video will be relatively straightforward. I think these are pretty familiar and well accepted and well known topics. We're going to just do an overview. Then we're going to create and use some of these, and that'll be all. So let's hop in. Open up our administrative widget, and that brings us again into roles. And here are the two tabs we're going to be playing with: users and groups. Let's start off with users. That's the most sort of central of the topics. As has been the case with several of the other widgets we've explored here, you can edit the user, and that will give you the ability to change the cases, groups, and roles. However, unlike groups and roles, you cannot create users in this widget at this time, frankly. That is a feature that will be coming and relatively shortly. So if in your video you have a little create button up here, then you're just watching this before, well after I've created this video, and hopefully I will have updated it by then. But nonetheless, at the moment, don't be surprised if you don't have an add button. You are meant to create your users within the FTK system, or summation, or Active Directory if you have integrated security. However, we can edit them. So let's go ahead and do that by clicking here. We can change their name, first name, last name, any of these attributes, but what we're going to focus up on is cases, groups, and roles. All the cases in the system will show up here. This guy has active access at the moment to the predictive coding case. Let's give him access also to the iPhone case. And these are the case numbers, by the way, if you're wondering what those numbers are next to them. So now this guy has access to two cases. He is part of the FTK user group, which is actually an FTK role, not a summation role. Not a Quincy role. These other ones, these sort of silly names I've created here, are Quincy roles. Quincy groups. We're not going to change his assignment here because we haven't yet talked about groups, but when we do explore groups, we'll come back and change this. And then the roles he has access to. He can have access to as many as you want, but as we discussed when we made these, it's best to assign only one role to a user. And if you are going to govern a person's roles through groups, then it's best to assign no roles directly to the user and only control his roles through groups. So right now he's got the video, and we're going to say that's good enough, and we're just going to leave it like that. Now we're going to save him and wait a second, and did you see there was a pause, and then the additional cases we assigned him popped up. Now let's log out and log in as him to see how his environment has been affected. Okay, the only permission we changed was the cases this guy had access to. He had originally access only to one, and we gave him access to two. And there we go. We gave him access to the iPhone case. He had predictive coding. We gave him access to iPhone. So there it showed up. If you have changed somebody's permissions and they call and say, my permissions didn't change, I still have the old ones, it is possible that their permissions have been cached in business services. That's a service that runs in the application. They will need to you will need to either refresh that service through the administrative function, or just give it a little wait and have them log out and log back in, and it will take effect eventually. But there are a few times when I have seen that happen, so it's worth noting that can be a dynamic you need to deal with. So let's log out again, and we're going to log back in as the administrator and explore groups now. Okay, we're into groups. Much like the users, we have the edit option, although now here we also have the option to delete and create. So let's just go ahead and simply delete one, show you what that looks like. Just click it and it will go away. Easy peasy. Let's go ahead and make one, show you what that looks like. Same as it did, if you will, when we were making a role. We'll call this video group. Just test. Okay, now let's assign the cases to this. We're going to do the Mantooth case and the Samsung case. And we're going to assign, let's just give this guy the video roles, the same as the user before had. And we're going to assign the permission test user to this group. And we're going to go ahead and save this. And again, it takes a couple seconds there, but here we now have our video group, and we can see it has these two cases. And it's the permission test user is given it, and it has the video role. Now let's log out and log back in as the permission test user and see how their environment may or may not have changed. Okay, they still start up the same way they used to. They still seem to have the same two views they used to, same filters, same basic permissions. Now this makes sense because the user originally had the video permissions, and we again in the group assigned them the video permissions. But we can see now they have access to 4 cases, whereas before they had access only to 2. I believe they originally had access to predictive coding and iPhone, and we added Mantooth and Samsung. Now I did this for a couple of reasons. One is I wanted to show you that permissions are additive, meaning if you assign somebody 5 different roles, or assign him to a group, 3 or 4 different groups, and give him roles permissions directly, he will have the summation of all those rights. So you have to be very careful. Again, this is part of the logic of either work exclusively through groups or exclusively through users, and really only assign one role and one set of information. That way you don't end up with unintended consequences. So let's log out now. Log back in as administrator. Okay, we're going to go into administrator. And let's look at our roles here. What's a different role? So we've been using the video role, and we're just going to, why don't we do the reviewer role? So this guy has access to different views. He's got access to a bunch of widgets. So something very different, if you will, than the video role has access to. We're going to go into groups. And we're going to find that reviewer role. And let's save it. There, it took effect. Now we're going to log out and again log back in as the permission user. Okay, so what just happened? So first of all, you can see his starting view has changed. It changed because we gave him, through our group, we gave him access to a different, to the reviewer role versus the video role. And the video, both reviewer role and the video role had different start screens. You don't always know, to be honest, which one will win, if you will, which one it will read first and as a result assign to the user. But in this case, the reviewer role won, and so it assigned the tasking view first. But again, he has the summation of the views, so whereas the reviewer role has access to desktop and tasking, the video role has access to desktop and FTK, so he has access to all of these things. If we go into desktop, look at all the widgets he has access to. The video role had access only to 4 widgets. I've forgotten which, but I remember it was 4. But the reviewer role has access to many. So again, the summation of the rights that have been assigned. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, groups and roles and users are relatively fluid, but need to be understood well. And you've got to come up with a system that works within your environment and stick to it, because otherwise you're going to end up with unintended consequences. And when playing with permissions, that's something you want to be relatively precise on. Hope this was helpful. And again, got you started in terms of playing with creating environments specific to your users.